inspired by our travels and the things that my wife and I love to eat, we have created this herb-crusted, Catalonian-inspired rack of lamb here at Superstition downtown. And for me, rack of lamb is rich and savory and fatty. And when you have the herb crust paired with all of that, it brings it together. It kind of creates our own unique spin on a rack of lamb. I've never had one like it anywhere, and I order it at least once a week when I come in here. Sometimes when you're doing a pairing, you want to have like a really bold beverage to go with a really bold meal like lamb. Other times you want to have a really clean beverage, a really clean pairing to cut through the fat and the savoriness of something, and it can accentuate those flavors in different ways that could be otherwise overshadowed with something that was, say, a big, bold berry mead, for example. So here at Superstition downtown, when we serve our lamb, we recommend that you try it with a can or a pour from our keg on tap of Lagrimas de Oro barrel-aged Principia. So that's a mouthful. Well, Principia is a cider, and we use Washington State apple cider. And we create this traditional cider, which is just fermenting apple juice, but then we put it into a mead barrel. And this is one of the only mead barrel-aged ciders that's ever been made. It's beautiful, it's light, it's clean, it's crisp, but it smells like champagne. If there was apples in champagne, your nose is tickled from the effervescence of the carbonation emanating from the glass. Oh. And I get, this is gonna sound crazy, and I don't think everyone would get this, but like the slightest hint of smoke, almost like an incense of bourbon, because the barrels that started the process of making Lagrimas de Oro, which is a traditional mead, like this is a traditional cider, we just use Arizona mesquite honey and water and yeast. We ferment that to a mead that's about 13 or 14%, and then we put that into a freshly racked bourbon barrel. Usually comes out at 15 or 16%, a minimum of 3 months, sometimes 12 months later. And then when we bottle that mead, which is one of my very favorite meads to drink, we fill it with Principia. It is so elegant. It's delicate, but really a cider lover's cider with these barrel notes, a little bit of honey, just the tiniest bit of bourbon and smoke coming out in the flavor as well. And it's complex enough to be interesting in its own right, but the carbonation of this, the crispness of this drink, it just cuts right through the fat and the herbs and the complexity that you get from the dish of the rack of lamb that we serve here. I think that this pairs so well with the lamb because you take a bite of this rich, decadent, fatty, herb-encrusted lamb chop, and maybe you get some of the sweet potatoes on the side, and then you take a sip of this LDO barrel-aged Principia, and it just erases it from your palate. And then you get to have another bite like it's the first time. Oh, that is truly refreshing and delicious. Cheers.